Sinking of the Titanic. The unsinkable Titanic, a marvel of engineering, cuts through the frigid waters. But then, something terrible happens.
Ahoy!
An iceberg. The following story is one of tragedy, courage, and the unfathomable sinking of a legend. So, let's explore the tragic story of how the ship of dreams ended up at the bottom of the sea. The luxury British passenger liner, RMS Titanic, began construction on March 31st, 1909. This massive project occurred at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, Ireland. The ship was completed 3 years later, in 1912. This masterpiece was one of 3 Olympic-class ocean liners. It was designed to be the largest luxury passenger ship in the world, costing $7.5 million to build. It measured 882 feet, 9 inches in length, 175 feet in height, and 92 feet in width, weighing 46,328 tons. Below the waterline were the orlop decks for cargo and the tank top for the engines, boilers, turbines, and electrical generators. The boat deck housed the bridge, wheelhouse, and lifeboats. The decks featured first, second, and third-class cabins, with second-class cabins comparable to first-class cabins on other ships, accommodating 2,240 passengers. The Titanic had a grand staircase, gymnasium, dining saloons, a reading room, barbershop, squash court, Turkish bath, and swimming pool. Despite carrying only 20 lifeboats, enough for half its population, the ship was considered unsinkable due to its 16 watertight compartments, believed to keep it afloat even if 4 were flooded. The Titanic's construction aimed to provide unmatched luxury and comfort for its passengers, making it a floating palace on the sea. It was a marvel of engineering and design, representing the peak of maritime achievement. The RMS Titanic's orlop decks were below the waterline, as was the tank top, which housed the engines, boilers, turbines, and electrical generators. This was the mechanical heart of the ship, essential for its operation. At the very top of the vessel was the boat deck, which housed the bridge and wheelhouse, where the ship was navigated, as well as the lifeboats. Between these extremes were the passenger decks. First-class cabins were opulent, with lavish furnishings and amenities. Even second-class cabins were comparable to first-class accommodations on many ships of that era. The level of luxury on the Titanic was exceptionally high. Third class, though more modest, offered more comfort than was typical for its category. The Titanic was designed to provide a luxurious experience for all its passengers, regardless of their class. The Titanic could accommodate 2,140 passengers from all walks of life, ranging from millionaires and celebrities to poor immigrants seeking a better life in America. This grand ship acted like a floating hotel, offering luxurious amenities. It featured a magnificent grand staircase, allowing first-class passengers to move quickly between decks. This staircase had a dome skylight, which let in natural light, adding to the opulent atmosphere. The ship also boasted a gymnasium for fitness enthusiasts, elegant dining saloons for exquisite meals, and a reading room for quiet relaxation. Passengers could visit the barbershop for grooming, play on the squash court, or indulge in the Turkish bath. Additionally, the Titanic had a swimming pool, providing various leisure activities. The blend of luxury and practicality made the Titanic a marvel of its time, catering to the needs and desires of its diverse group of passengers. The Titanic carried 20 out of a possible 64 lifeboats, which were enough for only half of the ship's population. This was within legal requirements at the time, as lifeboats were intended to carry passengers to rescue ships, rather than keeping the entire ship's population afloat. The White Star Line, the company who owned the Titanic, felt complacent enough to keep the number of lifeboats low to avoid cluttering the deck. They believed the ship's advanced safety features, including its 16 watertight compartments, made it nearly unsinkable. The lifeboats, although few, were seen as a backup measure. This decision, influenced by the ship's perceived invincibility, tragically underestimated the necessity for adequate lifeboat capacity. Hubris or practicality? The Titanic's design included a network of 16 watertight compartments, a feature that inspired immense confidence in its resilience. The idea was that if the ship's hull was breached, the flooding could be contained within a few compartments, preventing it from spreading and compromising the entire vessel. This innovative safety measure led many to believe that the Titanic was practically unsinkable, reinforcing its reputation as an engineering marvel of its time. The media extensively covered these qualities, highlighting the ship's advanced engineering and luxurious amenities. Headlines often touted the Titanic as the pinnacle of maritime innovation and luxury, contributing to its legendary status. This widespread belief in the ship's invincibility added to the shock and tragedy of its sinking, as many had trusted in its supposed unsinkability. On April 10, 1912, passengers began boarding the Titanic in Southampton, England. Large crowds gathered to watch the ship depart. At noon, the Titanic set sail under the command of Captain Edward Smith. Beginning her maiden voyage, the ship stopped at Cherbourg, France, and then Queenstown, Ireland, to pick up more passengers before starting its journey across the North Atlantic Ocean towards New York City. The excitement was palpable as the grand ship, touted as unsinkable, embarked on its historic voyage, carrying people from all walks of life toward a new beginning in America. On April 14, 1912, the Titanic received warnings of icebergs from other liners. As was customary, Captain Smith maintained full speed and charted a new path. As night fell, temperatures dropped below freezing, and the lack of moonlight or waves made it difficult to see approaching icebergs. At 11:40 p.m. ship's time, the ship's lookout, Frederick Fleet, spotted an iceberg from the crow's nest, shouting, "Iceberg! Right ahead!" as he rang the warning bell and called the officers on the ship's bridge. The binoculars from the crow's nest were locked away, so Fleet was forced to rely on his sight. The key belonged to Officer David Blair, who was abruptly dismissed from the Titanic's crew and neglected to give it to anybody else. The officers on the bridge quickly turned the ship away from the iceberg, but it was too late. The Titanic grazed the iceberg along its side, ripping several holes in its hull below the waterline, with ice fragments hitting the deck. At first, everyone felt relieved. The lookouts and most passengers didn't even feel the collision. However, by 11:50 p.m., Captain Smith and the ship's architect, Thomas Andrews, inspected the damage. They realized the boat would start sinking. By this time, 6 watertight compartments in the ship's hull had already been breached, and flooding had begun. At midnight, Captain Smith sent out a distress call over the radio, hoping other ships were nearby. He also ordered the Titanic's passengers to board the lifeboats. He knew there were only enough lifeboats for half the people on board the Titanic. At 12:25 a.m., the lifeboats began loading with women and children first. As was the protocol at sea, many passengers still did not understand what was happening. Confusion and disorganization meant that the first lifeboat to leave had only 28 women and children aboard when it could carry 65 people. First Officer Murdoch interpreted the order as women and children first, then men if there was space, while Second Officer Lightoller took it to mean women and children only. The Carpathia, 58 miles away, heard the distress call and began sailing towards the sinking Titanic to rescue the passengers. Distress flares were shot into the sky to help locate the Titanic. By 1 Orion, with the lower decks flooding, the ship's bow began to sink below the water's surface. Water poured in 15 times faster than it could be pumped out, which was made worse by the fact that many passengers had left their portholes open. The unsupported stern and its propellers rose from the water into the air. Panic and chaos set in as lifeboats were running out, while some individuals chose to accept their destiny, stay behind, or give up their positions to more vulnerable passengers. Others forced their way to the lifeboats. Many did not want to survive the disaster and be branded a coward back home. Final moments. By 2:05 a.m., the last lifeboat had left, but 1,500 people were still on the ship. The deck was now at a steep angle, and many passengers fell into the freezing, icy waters. At 2:17 a.m., the captain announced, "Every man for himself." Under the immense pressure, the stern broke off and the front half of the ship sank to the bottom of the ocean. Captain Smith went down with the ship at some point, following the maritime tradition that the captain accepts responsibility for all on board. Some say he went to the wheelhouse and waited for the end, while others believe he committed suicide using a pistol. Sinking. As the Titanic slipped beneath the icy waves, the enormity of the disaster became tragically clear. The once majestic ship, a symbol of human ingenuity and luxury, was now a tomb in the depths of the North Atlantic. While many perished in the tumultuous sinking, succumbing to the unforgiving waters. It was the frigid temperatures that claimed the most lives. In the freezing ocean, hypothermia swiftly stole the warmth from struggling souls, extinguishing life within minutes, even for those fortunate enough to find a place in the lifeboats. The ordeal was far from over. Some brave souls ventured back into the icy darkness, their searchlights piercing the night, desperately hoping to find survivors among the wreckage. Yet, despite their valiant efforts, only 4 more souls were rescued from the clutches of the sea. The Titanic's sinking left an enduring legacy of sorrow and loss, a poignant reminder of the fragility of human life in the face of nature's awesome power. Rescue by the Carpathia. At 3:30 a.m., the Carpathia spotted distress flares from the Titanic. By 4:10 a.m., the Carpathia arrived and began rescuing survivors from the lifeboats. Of the approximately 2,240 passengers and crew on board the Titanic, only 705 survived the disaster. Sadly, the Titanic's sinking claimed the lives of over 1,500 people, making it one of the worst maritime accidents in history. The survivors' accounts in the aftermath of the Titanic's sinking have since become a poignant reminder of the human cost and the lessons learned about maritime safety and emergency preparedness. These are the details about the sinking of Titanic. How did you come to know about this incident before watching this video? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section. And if you're craving more historical deep dives, tell us what other topics you'd like us to explore. We love hearing from you and bringing history to life. Thanks for joining us on this journey. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more epic history content coming your way.